Affairs don't always explode. Some don't come with shouting, broken plates, or midnight confessions soaked in tears. Some rot quietly, like wood eaten from the inside, still standing, still convincing, still called a home. Ours didn't collapse. It thinned, slowly, patiently, almost politely. She was careful, not dramatic, not reckless, not careless enough to get caught by instinct. She learned patterns, learned how much affection was normal, how much distance could pass without raising suspicion, how to argue just enough to feel human, but never enough to fracture the image. She never smelled like another man, never came home late enough to trigger alarms, never guarded her phone like a secret vault. That's why I trusted her. Trust didn't feel like a decision. It felt like gravity, effortless, assumed, unquestioned. We built routines instead of passion, schedules instead of curiosity. We replaced desire with logistics and called it maturity. And in that quiet space, where nothing seemed wrong, everything already was. The truth didn't come from confession. There was no trembling voice, no breakdown at the kitchen table, no "we need to talk." The truth came from paperwork, ordinary things, unemotional things, things that don't lie to spare feelings, tax documents, medical forms, school records, dates that didn't align, small discrepancies at first, the kind you dismiss because adulthood teaches you to stop looking too closely. A payment log before a trip she said she never took, an address listed that I'd never seen, a doctor's appointment dated months before she claimed she knew she was pregnant. At first, I assumed error. Systems fail, people misfile, clerks mistype. That's what denial looks like when it wears intelligence. But timelines are cruel when you line them up side by side. They don't bend to love. They don't care about intention. They collapse under scrutiny, and once they do, you can't unsee the shape of the lie. The child didn't resemble me. People say genetics are strange, that children pull features from distant relatives. That resemblance is a shallow metric. I believe that too, for years, but doubt has a way of sharpening vision. It started with the eyes, not the color. The distance between them, then the jaw, the way it set when they frowned, the way anger showed up early and unapologetic. I told myself I was imagining things, that love invents resemblance and suspicion invents absence, but the math wouldn't leave me alone. Conception dates, gestation windows, work trips that overlapped too neatly with her quiet weeks. Truth didn't rush me. It waited. It let me walk myself into it. So I couldn't accuse anyone but myself of blindness. When I confronted her, she didn't panic. That's what I remember most. No shock, no scrambling, no instinctive denial. She exhaled, not like someone caught, like someone released. She sat down before I finished speaking, folded her hands, looked tired, and then she said something I wasn't prepared for. She said she'd been waiting for this moment. Waiting, not fearing, not dreading. Waiting, as if discovery wasn't an accident, but an inevitability she had finally grown tired of outrunning. That's when I understood. The affair wasn't the betrayal. The betrayal was the silence. She told me everything calmly, too calmly. How it started, how it stayed small, how it stopped being about him and became about escape. She said it wasn't love, that it was never meant to last, that it was just something that happened. But things don't happen for years by accident. Years require maintenance, consistency, commitment. She told me she'd ended it long ago, that she chose me, that she stayed. As if staying was proof of loyalty rather than evidence of control. She said she didn't tell me because she didn't want to hurt me. I didn't argue, because people who say that aren't lying. They're just prioritizing comfort over truth. They confuse kindness with convenience. I asked her why she waited so long. She didn't answer immediately. She stared at the floor like the answer might crawl out of it. Then she said she thought time would erase it, that years of normalcy would outweigh a hidden wrong, that silence would eventually become underscore toggle. But silence doesn't erase, it fossilizes. Every unspoken truth hardens into a structure that reshapes the future. You don't move past lies. You build on them, and foundations remember what they're made of. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was realizing that every shared memory after that point had been compromised. Vacations, birthdays, hospital visits, quiet nights on the couch. All of it happened after the truth should have been spoken, which meant none of it was clean. Every laugh was informed by omission. Every "I love you" passed through a filter I didn't consent to. She knew something fundamental about our life that I didn't, and that imbalance changed everything retroactively. Time doesn't heal lies. That's a comforting myth told by people who benefit from delay. Time compounds lies. It multiplies their weight, extends their radius, ensures that when truth finally arrives, it doesn't arrive alone. It brings interest, collateral damage, irreversible consequences. By the time truth arrives late, that it no longer asks for forgiveness. It demands distance. She cried later, not during the confession, not during the confrontation. Later, when she realized silence had cost her something permanent, she said she wished she'd told me earlier. I believed her. That didn't change anything, because earlier was the point. Earlier was when repair was possible, when trust could have been bruised instead of destroyed, when honesty might have meant loss, but not erasure. Late truth isn't brave, it's archival. It doesn't fix the past, it documents it. We didn't scream, we didn't throw things, we didn't turn it into a spectacle. We dissolved, quietly, like something that had already ended years ago, finally being acknowledged as such. I moved out with a box and a clarity I didn't expect. Grief came later. First came relief, because uncertainty is heavier than pain. Years later, she reached out. A message, short, careful. She said she hoped I was well, that she thought about things differently now, that she wished she'd handled everything with more honesty. I didn't respond. Not out of anger, out of accuracy. Some conversations expire, not because forgiveness is impossible, but because it's no longer relevant. People ask if I ever forgave her. They frame forgiveness as a moral requirement, as if withholding it is a failure of character. But forgiveness isn't owed to timing that disrespects you. Forgiveness requires truth when it still matters. She didn't tell me when it could change our trajectory. She told me when it could only explain it. That's not healing. That's closure. For the person who kept the secret. I don't hate her. Hatred implies emotional investment. What I feel is distance. Clean. Quiet. Necessary. Some truths lose their value when they arrive too late. They don't restore trust. They don't reopen doors. They don't repair history. They simply explain why the door was already closed. Some truths lose their value when they arrive too late. Not because they aren't true, but because timing decides whether truth heals, or merely informs you that healing already passed you by.